What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York. We are at the Space in Westbury, Long Island, and today we are here with Sumo Cyco.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's so awesome to have you here. This is an awesome tour bus. If you guys could see what I'm seeing right now, it's incredible.
Yeah, it's it's DIY. We did it ourselves, but we're pretty proud of it actually. And I think after touring in it, this is our first couple weeks touring in it. There's only a couple things that we think we need upgrades. Other than that, we're like really happy. Like
More
we talked
Nintendo 64 games,
yeah.
right?
Like we talked about, we brought the N64 with us. We got our mini fridge, TV. Of course, we can watch DVDs. But the main issue, and especially we found this out in the South, is AC. Right now, we don't have AC in our vehicle.
I'm surprised that wasn't the first thing you thought of when building this bus.
Well, we did think about cutting the hole in the ceiling and putting the unit in, but then we're like, if we screw this up, there's going to be drip, and we have a rainy day, it's going to drip all over us. There's going to be rain all on our gear and all on our stuff, and we just didn't want to take the risks. So
I mean, screw the gear. You don't want to mess up that N64.
yeah, it's true.
Priorities, right?
It's true.
But your latest record, Opus Mar, did I say that correctly?
Opus Mar, yeah.
Opus Mar.
You got it. You're close.
But it came out in March of 2017, so it's been over a year now. Do you have like a conclusion on the record cycle and everything thus far?
Yeah, so response has been great from everyone. We had a lot of fun touring this record. I mean, last year we went on a bunch of fun tours in New Zealand. We did a last minute tour with Birthday Massacre. We only had like 4 days notice. So we got to spread the word about that thing, get around. We did it all crowdfunded, which was our indie way of getting it out there, which was great. We got super support from the fans. And we were able to make some awesome videos for it, one of them including one of my favorite singers of all time, Benji Webbe from a band called Skindred. Yep. And he let us film in his hometown of Newport, UK in Wales. And that was the first time I ever met him. So he had recorded on the record without me actually meeting him. And then when we did the video, it was the first time I got to meet him. And it was like the best thing, because it's like they tell you not to meet your idols, but I totally did, and it turned out awesome. Like now we're totally cool and friends. I've shared the stage with him a few times, so it's crazy because this band was started because of that band. So that's one of those moments that you're like, this is pretty rad.
Skindred, I think, is a really awesome band. Like Roots Rock Riot. I remember hearing that song for the first time, and I was just like, this is so cool. This is like new metal and death metal all thrown together.
I love that band because they bring the party so hard. Like to me, I love to be able to dance as well as rock out, which a lot of people are either one or the other. They're either like, I'm into like dance music or being able to like headbang. Whereas,
I see that in your music videos.
Yeah, whereas I love to be able to shake my ass and whip my hair around in the same breath. So that's just my thing, and Skindred's got that down.
In case you're tired of banging your head, you have other methodologies.
Yeah, true.
But that leads me into kind of like my next question, because what I found really impressive about your music, we've seen so many crossover genres in metal, but from the way you guys present yourself on stage and your imagery, but your music as well, really could appeal to people who love real heavy metal, but at the same time love pop music as well. Was that like an intentional thing that you wanted to do when forming Sumo Cyco, or did it just happen that way?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's unintentional, the fact that ever since I was really, really young, I had kind of been trained to write like, the formulaic pop song. I always had my ear out for hooks and to try to fit in all those kind of moments in a song that make people sing along or remember, put their hand up at a certain moment because they always remember that part in the song. And I think that no matter how hard I try, and when I'm writing, I'm always trying to come up with like innovative, interesting, intricate stuff, but the pop hooks always just seep in there somewhere. I kind of describe our music as like pop songs disguised in a lot of chaos, and the chaos comes with all the amazing guitar riffs and the crazy drumming and just a lot of the different genres that we kind of throw in there. But at the end of the day, we can still break it down on acoustic guitar, and it comes off, pretty well, I think, as well as like a well-structured song.
Yeah, and it could definitely like give you some flexibility when writing new music. Like you guys could experiment full force, right?
For sure. That was one of the main reasons I started Sumo Cyco, was because I come from a background on a major label as a solo artist. And I was getting to the point, and I was pretty young. I was in my teens when this happened. And I was just getting to the point where I felt like there's so many cooks in the kitchen, so many people I was working with that were trying to get opinions or, say, okay, well, we have to write a song like this if you want to make a hit or be successful. And I didn't like the fact that my creativity was so stifled by the fact that I was just trying to impress some random guy that I don't even know if he knows the right answers anyways. And I wanted to have that freedom to just create without any boundaries, without thinking I got to stick to this genre or that genre or write like this or like that. I just really just wanted to feel free to just go.
As you should.
Yeah.
And I'd imagine you're as opposed to being a solo artist with Sumo Cyco, it's like a completely different mind frame altogether. Like,
well, what's cool is that Matt, the guitarist who you just met earlier, he played guitar with me throughout my entire teen years as a hired guitar player, and kind of whispered in my ear the entire time of, check this band out. This is really cool. This would make this artist good and that artist not so good. And listen to musicianship here. And it wasn't until years later when I was kind of taking a step back from the pop music that we started writing together. And all those influences that he had kind of, brought up throughout our years that we'd been friends kind of turned into what Sumo Cyco is now. So it's been, I think from an outside perspective, a big jump from where I started when I first kind of got on the scene and started doing music to where I am now. But it's also feels very natural as a progression, as like a normal, just person growing up and finding new influences and becoming, the person that we all, want to be eventually. There's so much evolution that happens, especially in the teen years to where I am now. I just turned 30 a couple days ago. So a lot can happen in that time. And I think it's felt pretty natural and pretty real, and yeah.
As it should. And it's cool when it comes naturally, because as you mentioned with the whole pop world, it seemed like too maybe enforced and too structured, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I think it's like I started off when I first started doing music in the basement, like, just writing with my friends on a computer. And then, you go to Hollywood and you get all the executives and like you're working with a team of like 30 people and it's just kind of intimidating sometimes. And I don't know if I'm just made for this kind of life. Like I said, we're doing everything ourselves. We're crowdfunding. We're, building our own buses, and I'm very good at kind of taking a challenge and figuring out how to do it myself, even if I have no idea. If I've never done it before, I have no idea how it's going to happen. I just figure out how to make it happen. But there's something to be said also for having a good team of people that really understand what you're doing too. So it's not like we're anti, label, but we're just very much into making sure that the fans get a true representation of who we are. It's not watered down
as
in between.
They should.
Yeah.
Now, it's funny because I was reading about you guys when I got like the whole press release for this, and like they said rock and roll was in your blood, like from the beginning, even when you were on film for a couple of times. So was there like a pinnacle moment that made you start Sumo Cyco, like kind of like a straw that broke the camel's back, or did you have this vision in your mind for a while?
Yeah, it was actually, like I said, going back to Skindred there, Matt and I hadn't talked for a few years after I had kind of slowed down my pop career. I'd moved out to LA for a while, and I just kind of called him, got in touch with him after a while, and one of the first things he gave me was the Babylon record by Skindred, and just kind of like, oh, by the way, I found this band, I thought you would like them, and he just gave me their CD. And I remember putting in the CD player, driving home, and just being like, this is what I want to do. I want to be able to like scream and dance and rock out and do something completely different than what I'd been working on before. And it kind of started the ball rolling, and we just started writing together, and that's kind of what came out,
which is really awesome, that how it all kind of led up to that.
Yeah.
Now, as some people know, you also, in addition to being in the whole pop realm, you were featured in a couple of films as well. I know that you did voice acting at one point, and you were in one movie that I forgot, but I think you were just starring as yourself in it.
I've done a few things. There's this one kid show called Ready for Your Roscoe. I did the theme song, and then I had like a guest star role as this like skateboard chick. There's some fun things. I mean, I did the voice of Barbie, of all things. Barbie became a singer in a rock band for one of her DVDs.
That is so metal.
So, so I was her singing voice who got to do all the songs. But I do, like, I love film. I love directing. I do all the music videos for Sumo Cyco. I produce, edit, direct all of those. So for me, that's kind of something that if I wasn't doing music right now, I'd probably be into that world a lot more.
Which you brought up my next question, because I think it's really cool how you have these multiple creative outlets that, you know, you could share with a viewer and a listener. So when it comes to the whole creative process, do you have just like a blanket methodology? Or like when you're working with music videos, you kind of get into this creative mind frame, or with music, you get into another one?
Yeah. I mean, I like to think of it sometimes as almost like slipping into this like other consciousness where you just kind of like let your ideas just kind of roll, and then you pick up the pieces once you kind of gain some perspective on, okay, this is possible, this is doable, this is good, this is bad. For our music videos, and I mean, I think almost everything we do is kind of inspired a little bit of using our resources and using sometimes the few things that we have in order to make things look and feel bigger, if that can make sense. So for instance, with our videos, if we get access to a really cool location, I'll think, how can I maximize this, you know, location to its absolute best potential and write a treatment around it, rather than having something stuck in my mind so permanently that I can't get away from that storyline or that vision, that if I can't find the perfect location, it's like it's kind of conflicting with each other, right?
Seems like having a preconceived idea can a lot of times lead to disappointment.
Yes, exactly. And it's kind of like, and this is how I feel about everything, is like you really have to be able to roll with the punches. And in this industry, it's so unpredictable, not only with, for instance, like arriving at a shoot and we thought it was going to be, you know, a beautiful day and it ends up snowing. And you're like, okay, how do I make this work with what I got? And it's about not feeling defeated in those moments, but feeling like that's a challenge you can rise up to and actually make something cooler out of that, versus looking at it like a disappointment, right?
And it'll be more natural too
Yeah.
at the same time.
Yeah.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, you are from Canada, right?
Yeah.
Ontario?
Yep.
Now, in the world of metal, like I've interviewed a couple of metal bands from Canada. I interviewed Ash from 3 Inches of Blood and Threat Signal.
Okay,
who was
yeah,
awesome.
cool. Those are local guys from around our area.
Oh,
Yeah.
really? I got the Threat Signal tattoo.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, just got it too. It hurts like hell. But, you know, I know Canada is bigger than some planets, but I heard like in like big cities like Ontario or Toronto or Montreal that there is like scenes out there. Was it kind of easy to get into the whole music scene being from Canada?
Yeah, I mean, Toronto is obviously the biggest city in Canada, and so living close to Toronto is like you have every resource pretty much at your fingertips as far as being a band in Canada. We live right now kind of outside a city called Hamilton, Ontario, which is I believe the most rock and roll city in Canada. It's like looks like the Fires of Mordor because it's all on Lake Ontario with all the steel plants when you drive in, and it's the kind of like less expensive version of Toronto. So all the creative types that can't afford like the really expensive living in Toronto will come to Hamilton.
Sounds like New York.
And yeah. And so we all, I don't know, there's just like a really great bar scene, live music scene. We have a lot of festivals that come to Toronto, especially Canadian Music Week is there. North by Northeast, which is the sister festival to South by Southwest, is there. And there's a festival called Indie Week there that celebrates independent bands. And back in 2013, we were in the festival, and we honestly didn't realize that there was anything to be won. But at the end of realizing that we had won this contest, we got free trips to Ireland to play a festival in Ireland, and got to hang out there for a week. And it was our first time ever getting outside of Canada. So that festival really kind of pushed us to just get outside of just our Canadian kind of local scene into an international scene. And it's probably one of a few really pinnacle moments for our band that I think made the biggest difference in how far we've been able to go. Because as soon as bands stop realizing that life doesn't just revolve around their own hometown, and that there's a massive world out there with tons of fans that are from all over the place, all over the world. You try to get out there, it definitely can just like maximize and expand and grow your fan base like insanely. So I would highly recommend to any band, if I had to give them a piece of advice, is to always look beyond just your hometown for your market, because it might not just be there, it might be somewhere else.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter where your hometown is. Like, I know people who think that you're playing in New York City, you're playing to a bunch of people every night, but when you just going out to Long Island, you notice a massive difference. And you know, for you guys going internationally.
Yeah.
Now with this tour featuring Nonpoint and Butcher Babies and Cane Hill, all great bands, I feel like this is a very diverse lineup. I would say Butcher Babies is probably on the more heavier side. Nonpoint, you know, they were around the same time as bands like Korn and Disturbed are getting big, and Cane Hill, who's kind of like on the newer spectrum. I'd imagine when you're on stage, you see a variety of different fans.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And I mean, what's great is I feel like that they're not the same fan. Like, it's not the same fan that necessarily came to see Butcher Babies as Nonpoint, but then by the time that they've left the show, they're like, oh my God, I didn't know I would like that band, and they're pretty rad too. And I think that's what we have the great opportunity to do when we get on stage, is to introduce ourselves to so many new people. And I think that's one of my favorite challenges as a front woman, is to see, you know, a crowd of people that maybe a little cold. They don't know who our band is, and they're kind of judging us, and I can see them with their crossed arms sitting in the back. And by the time the end of the set rolls around, everybody's jumping around and all kind of, you know, letting go and starting to have fun. And to me, that is like the check mark in the box of a good performance, is when you can, you know, get those people to come to the merch stand after and get them excited about just being out for a night and enjoying music.
Absolutely. And you've played with a variety. Like, I know that you opened for Life of Agony at one point.
Yeah.
And you've played with a lot of different bands. I was like reading the list, and I lost count, but like, it's cool that you are able to like appeal to many different people, and you don't play to like the same crowd of people every time.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because of the type of spectrum that we have in our music. You know, we can kind of adjust our set to kind of suit the different bands that we play with. So like, you know, when we're playing with heavier bands, you know, we'll leave out some of the more urban stuff, but when we're playing, you know, we could play with more party bands or punk bands, we'll put in more punk stuff. So like, we have lots of different kind of styles in what we do, so we can kind of like figure out what the best strategy is to win over those people. But yeah, we do a cover song in our set, and we find that sometimes can get people out of their shell when they hear something that they actually know, versus if they've never heard us before, you know, they have a hard time kind of catching up to what the songs are about or what the choruses are. But once they kind of hear something, they're like, oh yeah, I know this track. So then they, you know, they get one over.
It seems like cover songs have always been like the real easy way to get. I mean, I Prevail pretty much has a career because they cover Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
And, you know, Disturbed with Sound of Silence and Bad Wolves with Zombie.
Yeah.
But before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time. But now that your latest record is over a year old, can we be expecting anything new or any tours that you're allowed to say?
Yeah. Well, we had released this one song called Undefeated earlier this year, just because we were feeling bad that we hadn't released any new music since Opus Mar came out last March, a year ago March. So we've definitely been trying to tie everyone over until we come up with some new material, but that's kind of going to be our next step moving after this tour, is to get in the studio, write hard, come up with another great album, and hopefully everyone will be hearing some stuff soon. I think there possibly might be another tour in UK by the end of the year, but nothing's been confirmed yet. And we're definitely going to try to make doing our run in the States at least once a year around this time would be awesome, before it gets too hot and when it's not so cold.
Yeah, well, you came at the right time.
Yes.
We had no spring this year. It went straight from winter to summer.
Yeah, crazy. But yeah, we're going to try to make it happen. And I just, you know, I really enjoy all the fans that have been coming out to the shows so far this tour. Just keep on coming. Make sure you come early and check our set. Yeah. Thanks so much, man.
Well, awesome. Everybody, we are here with Sumo Cyco. Pick up their latest record, Opus Mar, if you haven't already, and check out their newest single, Undefeated. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, Alex.